This time on Between the Wheels.
And it will do like 0 to 100 clicks in 8 seconds.
You've had a couple run-ins there.
Yeah, the police were just kind of hunting for you.
Careful, this is where the cops are.
Look at all the cows in sleeping bags. I got side swiped. I stepped on the gas, like zoom. See, now we're doing 80.
It's funny that you would chase him down though.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, he would chase him down.
You're 6 years old. This week on Between the Wheels, we're heading to Navan, Ontario to check out a 1985 Pontiac Fiero. The man's owned it since 1986, and his grandson contacted us to do an episode about it, and that's what we're going to do. But now this episode almost didn't happen because of this. We had a freak storm by the name of a Derecho. I had never even heard of this before. I didn't even know these things exist. It's almost like a combination between a tornado and a hurricane. Now, this is not something common for Ontario. We had never had something like this before. It really caught everyone off guard, and it caused a hell of a lot of damage. This storm was absolutely devastating. It caused so much damage coast to coast. Nobody had ever prepared for something like this. You know, here in Canada, you don't think you can get something like this. You see this happen in the United States or different places, but not over here. So this really caught everyone off guard. It was a real surprise. So our episode got pushed back. We were supposed to film a little while ago, but now here we are. We're gonna do it. I'm really excited. I've always wanted to do one of these cars, so I'm extremely excited. We're gonna go check it out right now. All right, so I'm standing here in Navan with Albert and Leif. It's nice to meet you, gentlemen.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And you guys have a hell of a car here. Leif, you contacted me actually through my real estate agent, Karen. She kind of hooked us up here. She said she knows somebody has a very interesting vehicle and that his grandfather has had the car since 1986. So tell us the story.
Well, I just thought not a lot of people know about the Fiero. I'll tell people, hey, my own grandfather's got this sweet car, but people don't really know. They're thinking,
right.
Say Fierro, they think you're pronouncing Ferrari wrong.
Right.
But no, it's a Fiero, and we're pretty proud of it.
Okay. And then a lot of the younger generation hasn't heard of this car because this car, it's been around for a while, but hasn't been produced in a while. Maybe Albert, you can let us know how long have these vehicles been produced for?
Well, they started producing them in 1984 and stopped in 1988.
Okay.
Because the executives in General Motors they didn't want any competition with the Corvette.
Okay.
And that's why they killed it.
Really?
Yeah.
So they killed their own car based on their own car?
Well, this was a lot cheaper. like a lot cheaper than the Corvettes, so they didn't want to ruin the market. Or they were concerned about the marketing of the Corvette. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is really unfortunate because this is a really cool car. I was really excited to film this because growing up in the 90s, this was a really cool car. Like a lot of people knew the Ferrari Testarossa, obviously, but this is was more attainable for the average person to get.
For sure.
So getting this almost looks like it should be in Back to the Future. I'm pretty sure if they didn't use the DeLorean, they could have swapped this in and it would have been a perfect fit. Yeah. Speaking of Cranberry, you mentioned that you bought this in 1986.
That's
maybe
right.
maybe tell us that story.
Like I had been researching this vehicle for a long time before it was even built, because there was lots of articles about it and how they were going to manufacture it. It was going to be a new way of producing cars.
Really?
Because what happens with this vehicle is it's street legal without any body panels.
Interesting.
And they had it at a show in Toronto, you know, like whatever fair they have there every year, you know, the exhibition or whatever.
Right.
And they had some lovely lady put the body panels on. And in matter of minutes. Yeah.
So it had no body panels and somebody literally put them on the vehicle.
Yeah, that's right. And you can
That's so
drive
bizarre.
it. It's a complete car without any body panels.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's all built. And what happens in the final building of the car, what they do is they drive it into a computerized large unit.
Right.
And that unit drills all the mounting holes for the body panels, like with digital precision.
Yeah.
And then the body panels are attached as the final thing. But the car is already mobile and they drive it into there.
Really, that's actually that's pretty advanced for back in the 80s, I would say.
Well, that was how they were going to build cars.
So that was just really early on, and early technology of
Yeah.
using computers to manufacture
That's
vehicles.
right. And then I basically, like, I kept track of the development of the car and how they were doing with it. And then they brought it out in 1984 as a 4-cylinder.
Okay.
And I rented one. I had to go on a business trip to Montreal. I rented it and drove it, and I was severely disappointed. Because it had no guts. It was totally gutless.
So what kind of engine did it have? It was a 4-cylinder.
Yeah.
And what kind of horsepower are we talking about?
I'm not sure, maybe 110 or something.
Okay, so it's pretty low. It was on the low end.
That's right. And they had thought of it then as just a commuter car.
Right.
Low on gas and what have you type of thing.
Yeah.
But I also personally feel that's what actually killed the car as well, because right away it got a bad reputation of being underpowered, you see. And then the following year they brought out the GT and the ES. Like, this is the ES now. Like the Grand Touring is the GT.
Right.
And both of them were available with the 6-cylinder.
Oh, okay.
And that changed the whole characteristics.
So this is a
the
6-cylinder?
car. Yes, it is.
Oh, okay, so it's not a 4-cylinder. Interesting.
No, it's a 6-cylinder, and it completely changed the way the car is.
And horsepower, how much horsepower are we
It's
talking
140.
about here? Okay, so they added more or less 30 horsepower.
Yeah, something like that. I'm not 100% sure about the initial, but I know this is around 140.
Now that might not sound like a whole hell of a lot of horsepower, but for a vehicle this size, like, this is a small vehicle.
Yeah.
It's a 2-seater, which is really cool. It's obviously pretty light because it's not very large. That must be, how do you feel about power? Is that an adequate amount of power?
Oh, that's more than enough.
More than enough.
And it will do like 0 to 100 clicks in 8 seconds. So.
Oh, we'll go for a test drive after. We'll see how it is. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And Leif, like, when you saw this thing, well, obviously you've had it since you were growing up, right?
It's always in the garage.
Always in the
garage.
garage.
Come take a look. What's going on here?
And so what have you thought about the vehicle? Like, you've always seen this thing. What have your thoughts been on it?
I mean, I always thought it was pretty cool, but I think we took it for granted a little bit. Like, you just think it's the old sports car, you know?
Yeah.
Like, everyone's got one of these. But no, and you always think it's cool, you know, and if he's breaking it out, you know, it's kind of a special occasion, or this is going to be an interesting day because he's not going to drive it quite the same as the other cars.
Oh,
Yeah.
you could definitely hear it when he turns it on too and revs it, so it must be fun. It's funny because a lot of people growing up, the grandparents usually have the boring vehicles, right? But it's not really that case at all here. It's more the opposite. He's got the coolest vehicle on the block, so.
Yeah, and you know, like it's a 2-seater, right? So it's always like, if he's bringing that, it's just me and him.
Right.
We're not bringing any of the other siblings or anyone else.
So you're the lucky one. You get first choice.
We'd go run errands with it.
Right.
And you can have the kids in the front because it doesn't have airbags.
No. Gotta love the 80s. They just ran it the way it
So
is.
it's the first time you're in the front of a car. It's this.
Yeah.
That's true, eh? Tell us some stories about it.
Well,
You've had a couple run-ins there.
yeah. I used to work in Hull a lot.
Okay.
And it was always interesting working in Hull because it looked like the police were just kind of hunting for you or waiting for you. And the cop is across from me and he's reaching down and I wonder, okay, well, what's he reaching for and what does he pop up? The speed trap. Like just seeing this car reminded him he should have the speed trap on the dash, and he put the speed trap on the dash, and we both went on our merry way, you know. And then I don't know, it was the same year or a couple of years later, I want to make sure I merge without getting hit.
Right.
And all I did was I stepped on the gas, like zoom,
Yeah.
and I'm waved off because I'm speeding.
Oh. And it's funny because on the Quebec side, you actually don't have much time to merge. A lot of those highways,
Yeah.
the on-ramp is like, all right, you're on it, now get on, or you're going in the ditch.
Yeah,
Like, you have no time.
But like I said, just doing that, I'd already broken the speed limit.
And that's all it took, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. So.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I think he was just jealous of the nice car. I don't think the police cars, those vans were really nice
Yeah.
back then. So.
He has a good one that I was thinking of too, where you're so low that the semi couldn't see you.
Oh yes. As a matter of fact, again, Hull, a popular place.
Yeah.
I got sideswiped by like a big soft drink vehicle.
So one big trucks, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I had to chase after him, which wasn't very hard, and get him to pull off the road and like exchange information. But he scraped me on the side.
Did he just hit and run and then just go for it?
Yeah,
So he made a run from a Fiero with a truck like that? That's hilarious. Sounds so ridiculous. It's funny that you would chase him down, though.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, he would chase him down.
One other thing I want to mention is that this vehicle is a mid-engine vehicle.
Okay.
And
What does that mean?
well, it means that the engine is right behind you, ahead of the wheels.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, like the new Corvette has that now.
Okay.
That's how they built the new Corvette, saying that this is the first sports car they've built that has this, but it isn't. This one had it well before. So that's the interesting part, and you would think the trunk is here.
Yes, that's
Because
what I was assuming. I wasn't 100% sure.
Because the engine is in the back,
Right.
but the trunk is behind the engine.
Okay.
Okay, and I can, if you want me to, I can show you what this is used for.
I think we have to because I think there's no other way around it.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly. I'll just open it up for you.
All right. So this is quite unique.
So the spare tire is there,
Right. There's a spare tire in the front. I've never
And-
seen that before.
and the glass that comes out of here lays in there. You see the rubber stops there,
yeah.
and then on there, and then is forced down by the hood, kept in place.
So the glass is actually removable.
Yeah, you can take the glass right out and you store it in there.
You store the glass in there and
Yeah.
the spare tire in there
Yeah,
and the jacket. That's really bizarre.
yeah.
And that's a huge brake booster too. That is huge. Look at that master cylinder.
And then the problem with the radiator is the fact that they've run hoses or pipes all the way from the front to the back of the engine. And,
Right.
And that caused a problem initially because the hoses would rub against something which they changed later on, and then at a certain point all at once you lose your coolant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even know in some of those areas because they'll be, I guess, inside the panels and
Yeah, yeah.
near the frame somewhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was an issue, but which I have overcome, and I should knock on wood because I hope it doesn't happen again. Yeah.
I've also never seen a radiator on an angle like that before.
Well, there probably isn't enough room because they have that as at a slant there, you see.
Right.
Yeah.
So everything here is just to absolute precision.
Yeah.
Which isn't always the case in older vehicles, because the older vehicles didn't have as many components, so you can fit a lot more. But here it's like, there's not much play for a lot of these things.
Yeah.
So what's this thing over here?
Well, that's a deflector for the wind, which you would mount on here once you take the glass out.
So you take the glass out and you put that on, and then you got essentially a convertible, kind of.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very cool. And then you got the lights that actually flip up. These are the lights.
Yeah, well, what happens is they flip up and then, like, I don't want to mess with them, but then they open up, like, that's part of the body, and,
right.
it moves them up, you see? Yeah.
Right. Leaf, is this like the craziest car you've ever seen? Like, based on this must be just like the wildest vehicle, and growing
Definitely
up must
is,
be
yeah.
pretty interesting.
I know when I was a kid too, I used to have like a little Batmobile toy where the lights switched up, and that's the only thing that toy did.
Yeah.
So when this thing, as soon as I see the lights switch up, I think, oh my gosh, he's got the Batmobile.
It's like it's a silver Batmobile.
Looks, yeah, or like Bruce Wayne's car or something.
Right.
I always thought that was like the coolest part.
Okay. Very cool. Well, now we've seen the front. We have to see the engine. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
How do you even open this?
Oh, well, let me close this, eh?
You have to be an engineer.
So here is the engine. Well, it's a beautiful little engine. So if you want to know about the engine, the air cleaner is underneath here.
Okay.
And it's a pretty large one. So it gets lots of air.
Right.
And then the battery is over there, and that's why I have some tools there so I can undo that part.
Yeah, it's a little buried, but it looks pretty accessible. Just a couple bolts in.
And then this is like the luggage compartment.
That's the trunk, right?
That's the trunk, or you can strap it on top.
So you got no rear seats, and you got a smaller trunk, but it's still pretty spacious trunk, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Well, with all this talk about driving in this car, I'm really intrigued. I think we got to go for a drive.
Okay, we can do that.
All right, let's go for.
Okay.
Let's take her for a rip, as they say. So you got electronic windows in here. This is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Now, I could have gone that way, but then I don't want to go on the gravel road with it.
No, I don't expect you to off-road this thing. This isn't Back to the Future Part 3. It's got a beauty sound to it.
Yeah, nice, eh? Now Leaf lives down here and then to the right, well, near the end there.
That's very cool that you got your grandson just a few blocks down from where you live.
Well, we started looking after Leaf, or my wife started looking after Leaf when he was 1 year old. Like, my wife took early retirement as a teacher.
Okay.
And we've looked after all their kids. As a matter of fact, we're still looking after 2 kids before and after school.
So they have the coolest grandparents with the coolest cars.
Yeah.
Now you must get some looks driving this thing in city.
Yeah, well, people now, because they don't see this car isn't around anymore, you know?
No, you don't see many of these around, and I had heard that these vehicles, when they first came out, were actually horrendous. They had a lot of issues, but by the end, by 88, they were actually really good vehicles. They had really fixed all those issues, like you said, with the engine being underpowered.
Also, it had problems with potential fires, and that's why I have the fire extinguisher, except it was the 4-cylinder one that had the issues. But even this one, they installed special heat shields.
Okay.
You know, in order to make sure that didn't happen. See, we're now doing 80, well over 80.
She goes pretty good for a little car.
Yeah. It's, you know.
This is a really interesting dashboard too. I've never seen something that comes out so much. It's usually much more flat. This has all kinds of edges and corners and.
Oh yeah, the other thing I should mention is that this was one of the first vehicle, if not the first vehicle, that's completely computer controlled, but the gauges look like analog.
Right.
But they're getting digital signals that have been converted back to analog to operate the digital gauges.
Interesting.
So when I was going to Montreal one time and coming back, and I didn't know yet how, usually with a car, if the needle is on empty, you can go for quite a while. This car, when the needle is on 0, the lights come on and the car stops.
So it just goes, like you get no warning, eh?
Look at all the cows in sleeping bags. Yeah, we love living where we do, because now there's a lot of big trees in the graveyard, but when we first moved in, you could look right beyond and see all the farmers' fields.
Right.
And when I grew up in Holland, I was living in a little town and there were farms all around us.
Right.
So it was like moving back home.
Leaf had mentioned that, because I actually didn't know your name till today. I knew you as his opa.
Yeah.
So that you're from Holland?
Yeah.
And where did you live in Holland?
Well, I lived in a little town called Didam, which is near Arnhem.
So yeah, I pulled up that hill pretty easily. You just gave it a little bit. He just flew up.
You just, I didn't have to do that because the car doesn't, like I said, when you're on St. Joseph going up any of those ramps, see, that's a BMW. What do you expect, right?
Yeah.
Assholes. Going up any of those steep inclines, it's just a piece of cake,
Right. That's awesome.
See, now we're doing 80.
Nice.
And I wasn't particularly shifting fast.
No, you're just enjoying the drive, and that's what it's all about. It's all about these vehicles. A lot of people, that have classic vehicles, have a hard time explaining to people that don't.
Yeah.
Why have a vehicle like this? So, what's your reason for keeping it this many years?
Oh, because I love the car, and I love the memories and the holidays we've had. Being in places like Vermont and going up and down the hills, and what's that place in Nova Scotia there where you got the lighthouse and the waves and
Peggy's Cove.
Peggy's Cove. We were in Peggy's Cove with it, Yeah.
Well, that's a beautiful drive. I've been there many times.
Oh yeah.
And I have the same memories as you do, believe it or not, because I went on the Cabot Trail. I drove one of my classic cars.
Yeah.
On the Cabot Trail, actually twice.
Nice.
And I took the tires right down to the wires both times. That's how bad that trail is.
Yeah.
But anyways, and I'll never forget that trip. And so like yourself, having it all these places kind of connects you with the vehicle, and getting rid of that vehicle is like almost getting rid of that memory.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of family and holidays, so Leaf was really excited to do this episode and he contacted me, which got me excited because driving this car, being in it, this is like a dream come true for me because I always liked this car growing up. This is the cool car. And for Leaf, having this in the family for so many years, how do you feel about, the fact that you still have it and you have your grandson and you can spend time with him? How is that for you?
Well, it's very special, and I like the fact that Leaf really enjoys it, But when Leaf is in it, like I said, he's up to the glass,
Right. He's 6'4", so I don't know how much he might be driving like The Rock in that movie there with Mark Wahlberg there. Yeah. a pain and gain, but it's not a huge vehicle in terms of height. Definitely my head is almost touching the ceiling, and I'm only 5'7".
Yeah.
But so he might have to pop the sunroof if he wants to drop.
I like Leaf a lot. He's he's doing well, and I hope his dreams come true.
Oh yeah, she's nice.
Nice, eh?
Yeah, she's good. I like it out here. The field, like in the open fields, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, that's what I've always liked because I grew up in a little town with farms all around, eh?
Oh yeah.
So.
Me too. There was this town.
Yeah.
Pretty similar.
Yeah.
I think that's why my dad likes it here too.
Yeah.
You ever take him out?
I don't think he's ever been in this.
Really, eh?
No.
That's funny. My mom has though, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, here we go. There's a little hill, like, then it's going, eh? Be careful, this is where the cops are.
I don't even have it in fourth gear.
Yeah, don't start now.
So that's where it should be.
Hey, fourth gear?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
See, and now at 80, it's only doing about 2,000 RPM.
Right. Then it's not revving as much, right? How do you know when you got to shift it?
Oh, that's by instinct.
Yeah, you just feeling?
Yeah, you do it by the engine sound.
Okay.
See, now,
I guess now you've had how many years now to learn
Yeah.
it? You got to be like the symbiosis with the car at this point, eh?
That's it.
You're part of it. You guys
That's
live
it.
an entity one all together.
I had to teach your mother how to drive a standard.
In this car?
No.
No, you want to let her?
Hey?
You ever let her drive it? Just you, eh?
So Albert and Leif, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
This
Yes.
is a pretty special car. You even got a special place in the garage for
Yes,
it.
that's it.
You actually built the house around the car.
That's how we designed the house.
That's the coolest thing ever.
Well,
Now
I didn't want a 3-car garage. That looks awful.
No, it's too much garage. So
Yeah, yeah.
You're definitely a very dedicated car owner, and because of that, thanks for being on the show. You guys get hats.
Oh, thank you.
Between the Wheels hats now.
Turn the wheels.
Yeah, that's right. So that's the show.
Pop them on.
You pop them on, yeah. There you go. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
All
Yeah.
right, take care. Thank you.
Next time on Between the Wheels.
Rally racing. It's exciting. It's unique.
It doesn't have to be a Subaru. Not race any car. That's the whole point.
It's dangerous. And it's underrated. This time on Between the Wheels, we're on the road again. We're heading to Bancroft, Ontario, Canada to check out the 2022 Rally the Tall Pines. Let's get going.